I made a joke about my husband's size, just one stupid joke. But when I looked around the room, I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Dave choked on his drink. Heidi stared, speechless. And Julian looked at me like I'd broken something sacred. He walked out. No words, no goodbye, just silence. And I was left standing there, trying to laugh it off, feeling like the smallest person in the world. How did one joke destroy everything? 4 years I was married to Julian. Good guy, solid, handsome in that quiet, unassuming way. Steady job, got a big promotion recently. We had the house, gorgeous 3-bedroom we bought 2 years ago, the one I insisted we renovate the kitchen in. Quartz countertops, farmhouse sink, the works. Julian thought it was extravagant. Lex, do we really need this? He'd asked, that worried little frown line appearing between his brows. I'd waved it off. Property value, babe. Plus it'll look amazing for hosting. Hosting our friends, our tight-knit college group, 6 couples, monthly dinners, years of shared history. It felt secure, like proof we'd made it. Julian, he's sensitive, always has been. Something about an ex before me, someone who apparently did a number on his confidence, made him feel inadequate. He mentioned it once, years ago, how brutal the breakup was. I filed it under ancient history, because I wasn't her. He was with me, secure, loved. I figured his eagerness to please, his constant quiet striving, was just him trying to be a good husband, keep me happy. Maybe I mistook sensitivity for weakness, something to be managed, even gently mocked. Our dynamic involved teasing. He liked it when I took charge in the bedroom, and sometimes I'd poke fun. He'd blush, get that tight look around his eyes I always read as playful embarrassment. Maybe it wasn't. My best friend Cassidy knew everything. Everything. The good, the bad, the stuff about Julian I'd never dream of him knowing I shared. His sleep habits, his insecurities, hell, even his size. We'd talk about it all. And don't even get me started on his performance, which I swear had the potential to make a college anatomy class blush. We'd dissect everything over brunch, laughing like it was the funniest thing in the world. It felt like a sacred best friend pact, harmless venting. Who else could I trust, right? It was just girl talk, normal. Totally normal. I mean, everyone does it, right? Talk about their husbands behind their backs, vent about how they don't fold towels right or always leave their dirty socks in the living room. It's just part of marriage, isn't it? But Julian had no clue. None. If he knew what I was saying, it would have crushed him. He'd have a meltdown, for sure. And yet, I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, that should have been a red flag. The fact that his potential reaction would be utter devastation. Why didn't that make me stop and think for even a second? But no, I ignored it. It was just harmless fun. A little spice to keep things interesting. Cassidy and I would sit there, sipping mimosas, flipping through magazines, and chatting about everything from Julian's quirks to his, well, less than impressive moments in the bedroom. We'd laugh and joke about how, when he tried to fix the leaky faucet, he ended up flooding the bathroom. She'd laugh, telling me how cute it was that he tried, even though he was, as she put it, as useful as a screen door on a submarine. We both knew it wasn't just the minor stuff. Does he still sleep like he's been hit by a truck every morning? Cassidy once asked me, grinning like she was about to spill tea. Oh, totally, I replied, snickering. He's like a zombie in the morning. I have to practically throw a bucket of water on him to get him to wake up for work. And don't even get me started on when we've been out all night. It's like trying to wake up a corpse. We giggled, our mouths full of mimosas. I knew it was wrong, but the more we talked about it, the more I felt like I could get away with it. It was just harmless. Funny, right? It was nothing serious. After all, it wasn't like I was telling her his deepest secrets. Just a little gossip, nothing more. But then, there was that nagging voice in the back of my head that said, this isn't okay. Maybe I was betraying him, but I told myself it was just harmless venting. Still, as the words left my mouth, I always felt a tiny little flicker of guilt. I'd say, it's not like I'm actually telling her everything, but who was I fooling? I was telling her everything. The worst part? Julian had no idea. No idea at all. He trusted me. He thought I was his person, the one who kept his dignity intact. What would he think if he knew I'd been casually spilling his most vulnerable details to someone who wasn't even his friend? And yet, I told myself it was fine because Cassidy was my friend. My best friend. And that's what best friends do, right? Share secrets, even the embarrassing ones. I didn't realize it then, but the cracks were already starting to show. The more I joked, the more I pulled away from him. The more Cassidy knew, the less I respected Julian's privacy. At the time, I thought it was just harmless fun. I couldn't have been more wrong. That voice in my head, the one I kept brushing off, it wasn't trying to ruin the fun. It was trying to tell me I was heading down a path where no amount of laughter would make things better. And as we both laughed about it, I should have known that this would come back to bite me. His promotion was huge news. Big pay bump. Finally enough for that Greece trip I'd been dreaming of. Maybe a bathroom Reno. I was thrilled about the money. But the catch? Travel. 2 weeks out of every month. My supportive wife's smile was plastered on, but inside, resentment simmered. Me, alone in our big house while he was off in fancy hotels. I complained to Cassidy naturally. 2 weeks, how will I survive? Wink emoji, harmless. The dinner party was our turn to host. First time showing off the new kitchen. I needed to shine, especially after Krista's pool bragging last month. Julian cooked all day, some complicated French dish. I did the atmosphere, flowers, candles, playlist. I wanted perfection. As guests arrived, Julian was the perfect host, charming, attentive. I watched him thinking he was good at this, but also cataloging little flaws, already planning the post-party feedback. And yes, thinking about how I'd tease him later about being gone for 2 weeks, reminding him he wasn't exactly packing enough to leave me satisfied remotely. Our little inside joke? Cruel? Maybe, but it was our thing. Dinner went well, compliments flowed. I deflected some to Julian with a condescending, "He follows instructions well." He just smiled that tight smile. Later in the living room, wine flowing, the talk turned to the promotion, the travel. "How will you manage?" Pamela asked, swirling her glass like a therapist. I gave a vague answer. Then Heidi, bless her clueless heart, piped up, "You should get some toys, Lexi. Find one that's comparable." Giggles erupted. Dave snorted. It was crass, typical, and I saw my opening, a punchline begging to be delivered. Julian had stepped out to the garage for more wine. The timing felt perfect. The filter that should exist between brain and mouth dissolved in the expensive red wine that he picked, but I'd imply was my choice. I rolled my eyes dramatically, leaned in conspiratorially. "Toys his size?" I scoffed, letting a smirk play on my lips. The group quieted, anticipating the punchline. "Please," I said, voice dripping with mock pity. "I don't think they make them that tiny." I waited for the laugh track, the appreciative chuckles, the validation of my wit, silence. Utter, profound, horrifying silence. Dave choked on his wine. Krista gasped. Mark stared intently at his phone. Cassidy looked at the floor, a deep flush creeping up her neck. Even Heidi looked shocked. My smile froze, confusion warring with a dawning horror. Why aren't they laughing? Then I saw him. Julian. Standing in the doorway, empty-handed. The wine bottle sat on the side table, placed with unnerving care. He must have heard. His face? It wasn't angry. It was worse. Blank. Devoid of all expression, like a switch had been flipped off inside him. The warmth in his eyes was gone, replaced by a flat, distant emptiness. All the sensitivity I dismissed, all the insecurity rooted in that old breakup I never took seriously, it was all there in that horrifying void. He looked utterly broken, and I had broken him. He didn't speak, just turned, slowly, deliberately, and walked towards the front door. The click of the deadbolt, the creak of the hinge, the soft thud of the door closing. Then, faintly, his car starting. Not in the garage, in the driveway. "Did he just leave?" Heidi whispered. A shaky laugh escaped me. "He's being dramatic. He'll be back." But the look on his face, that wasn't drama. That felt like an ending. Everyone stared at me, pity and judgment warring in their eyes. "What?" I snapped, defensiveness kicking in. "It was a joke! We joke like that!" "Not like that, Lexi," Dave muttered. Cassidy wouldn't meet my eyes. The party dissolved quickly. Awkward goodbyes, averted gazes. Soon I was alone in the showcase kitchen, surrounded by the debris of the perfect evening. I fired off an angry text. Way to embarrass me. Come home. No reply. Called. Voicemail. Called Cassidy. "You went too far, Lex," she said quietly. "You humiliated him. Like you don't complain about Tim." "Privately, Lexi, not to our entire friend group." I hung up on her, furious and betrayed. How could she not be on my side? 3 days of silence, 3 days of texts, escalating from anger to worry, unanswered. 3 days of calling his phone, his parents, his sister, nothing. I stayed home from work, my eyes swollen from lack of sleep, replaying that moment over and over. Why wasn't he answering? It was a joke. Why was this happening? Finally, a text from Julian. Julian. "Coming by for clothes tomorrow while you're at work. Cold, detached, sneaking into his own home." I felt a knot in my stomach. Me. "Where have you been? We need to talk." Hours passed and I stared at my phone. No response. Then a notification. Julian. "Marriott downtown. Need space. A hotel. A hotel. For God's sake, was he really wasting our money on this because his feelings were hurt? This was insane. I needed someone to talk to. I called Cassidy. She picked up almost immediately, but her hesitation screamed, "I know more than I'm letting on." "Have you talked to him?" I demanded. Her voice was soft, almost too soft. "Yeah, Lex, he's really hurt." "What?" I snapped. "It was a joke." "I know you think it was a joke," she said, her tone shifting. "But he said it's not the first time you've made comments like that." "That's ridiculous," I shot back, the anger rising in my chest. "We joke all the time." "Was it?" she countered, her words like a punch to the gut. "Remember at New Year's? When you told everyone he couldn't handle more than 2 drinks because he's built like a middle schooler? Or when you joked he needed help opening jars in front of Heidi?" My stomach twisted. It hit me. Those jokes, the ones I thought were harmless, the ones I made to get a laugh, they weren't harmless. I never thought it would go this far. I never thought he would actually leave. Cassidy's voice was quiet now. "I don't announce Tim's insecurities to everyone we know, Lex." A cold wave of doubt washed over me. Were my jokes mean? No, they couldn't have been. Everyone was just oversensitive. I felt my chest tighten. "You're overreacting. You're on his side now?" I snapped, barely able to keep my emotions in check. "I'm just being honest," she said, her voice soft. "I'm not taking sides. But maybe for once you should listen to him." I hung up on her. Again, she'd betrayed me. She should have been on my side, telling me everything would be okay. But no. She sided with him. I threw my phone down on the couch, my hands trembling. I didn't want to admit it, but deep down, I was beginning to realize maybe I had gone too far. I skipped work the next day. He wanted his stuff? Fine. He'd face me. When he finally walked through the door, he looked exhausted, like a man who hadn't slept in days. His eyes were empty, distant, like he'd already checked out. That look in his eyes made my stomach twist, but I wasn't about to back down. I stepped in front of the bedroom door, blocking his way. "We need to talk," I said, trying to sound calm, but I knew my voice was shaky. He barely looked at me, his expression cold. "Nothing to talk about," he replied quietly, his voice flat. My chest tightened. "You disappeared over a joke," I said, a mix of anger and disbelief. "It was a joke, Julian." He flinched, his jaw tightening. The anger was there, but something else too, a deep, painful exhaustion. "It wasn't a joke, Lexi, it was public humiliation, and it wasn't the first time." His words hit me harder than anything else he'd said. "Don't be so sensitive," I blurted out, the words coming out like a defense mechanism. I couldn't believe what he was saying. This wasn't the man I knew. He couldn't really be that hurt over something so small, could he? "Stop." His voice was low, firm, and for the first time his quiet command made me pause, made me listen. He was done. "I came for my things. I'm finding an apartment." The word apartment hit me like a physical blow. My heart dropped. "You're leaving? Over this?" I whispered, not fully processing what was happening. He took a deep breath, as if steeling himself. "I'm leaving because I finally realized you don't respect me. You never have." His words hung in the air, heavy and final. "That's not fair," I protested. "I tease you sometimes, but that's all it is, Julian." My mind was racing. This can't be happening. "It's not teasing when you weaponize insecurities," he said, his voice quiet but firm, like he had already made up his mind. "It's the comments, the way you talk down to me, take credit for things I do, the way you talk about me to Cassidy." His words cut through me like a knife. I froze. My mind scrambled for an answer, but I couldn't find one. How had it gotten this far? How had I let myself treat him like that? He stepped past me, walking toward the bedroom, and I could feel the weight of his every step, like he was leaving behind a life we'd built together. A life I had taken for granted. My blood ran cold. "What? Who told you?" The words barely left my mouth when he pulled out his phone. My stomach dropped. He opened the screen and held it up to my face. There they were, screenshots, texts, my words, my jokes, everything, months of them, my private conversations with Cassidy, the jokes about his size, his performance, his insecurities, everything I had thought was harmless, every single thing I'd whispered in her ear, laughing, venting about the man I'd promised to love. It was all laid bare in front of me. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. "She showed you our private texts?" I gasped, the betrayal sharp and bitter, the taste of it sour on my tongue. "What kind of friend is that?" I could barely get the words out, each one heavier than the last. He looked at me, his face a mask of quiet fury. "The kind who finally realized how toxic you are," he he said flatly, his voice devoid of any emotion. It was like he wasn't talking to me anymore, but to someone he no longer recognized, someone he couldn't love. Toxic. Me? My head spun as I tried to process what he was saying. This wasn't possible. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. Cassidy, my best friend, she'd betrayed me. She'd shown him everything I'd said, everything I'd thought was between us. I felt like the world had just cracked open beneath me, and I was falling through it. What had I done? How could I not have seen it before? Julian took a deep breath, his eyes hardening. I thought it was just a joke, Lexi, but it's not. Not anymore. He lowered the phone, not even looking at it anymore, and I could see the pain in his eyes, the hurt I had caused him. I never thought you'd do this, he said quietly, almost to himself. Then, as if to make sure I understood the weight of it, he added, but now I see it. All of it. I opened my mouth to speak, to apologize, to make it right, but the words wouldn't come. Nothing I could say would fix this. It was too late. The damage was done. And this time, no joke would get me out of it. The fallout was swift and brutal. Word spread like wildfire. I tried damage control, spinning the oversensitive husband narrative, but the pitying looks and awkward silences told me they'd heard Julian's side. My defiant Facebook post about standing strong got 3 sympathy likes from acquaintances and deafening silence from our actual friends. It hung there online, a monument to my social isolation. Work was torture. The whispers, the averted gazes. Cassidy worked there too, different department, but her influence was clear. I confronted her by the coffee machine. Having fun ruining my life? She looked startled, then sad. I didn't betray you, Lexi. I did what a real friend should have done ages ago. Those messages showed how you constantly degraded him. I thought we were friends. So did I, she said quietly, until I realized how you treat people you supposedly love. She walked away, leaving me shaking with rage and humiliation as colleagues pretended not to have heard. My attempts to reconnect with the friend group fizzled. Pity coffee dates, awkward silences, group hangouts I saw on Instagram but wasn't invited to. The message was clear. I was out. Julian was in. The realization started to seep in, cold and terrifying. It wasn't just the joke. It wasn't just Cassidy's betrayal. It was me. My behavior, my words, my casual cruelty masquerading as humor. My best friend saw me as toxic. My husband felt disrespected and humiliated. My friends had chosen his side. My carefully curated world was collapsing, and the foundation, my own actions, was rotten. The narrative I tried to spin had backfired spectacularly, casting me as the villain. A small, horrifying voice inside whispered that maybe the casting was accurate. The house sold. The beautiful house I'd obsessed over, the one I'd convinced Julian to renovate, the one I'd spent years dreaming about, gone. I couldn't afford it alone. Julian's promotion money, the money I had resented him earning while he was away, was the only thing that kept us afloat there. Funny how the universe works, isn't it? Irony bites hard. I moved into a small, depressing apartment across town, beige walls, a view of a parking lot, and a constant, suffocating reminder of everything I'd lost. The emptiness of the place echoed louder than my thoughts, like the silence of my own failures settling in. It was too quiet, too lonely. I could barely breathe in that place. Then the email came, from Julian. Subject, divorce. My heart stopped. My finger hovered over the screen, hesitation freezing me in place. I clicked it open with trembling hands, my mind already screaming at me to brace for whatever came next. It was brief, cold, irreconcilable differences, retained legal counsel, attorney will be in touch, list of personal items he wants, wish you well. The words blurred as my vision swam. My throat tightened. I read it again, as if the second time would somehow make it different. But it didn't. The finality of it hit harder than any confrontation we'd had. Divorce, just like that. No more we, just me, alone in this empty apartment, with nothing but a list of belongings to pack up, and a life to rebuild from scratch. Wish you well. The words stung more than anything else. How could he wish me well? After everything? Was this really how it ended? With a cold email and a list of his stuff? Divorce! The words swam before my eyes. Not a separation, not therapy, not a discussion. Divorce. Final. Absolute. He wasn't coming back. He was legally severing me from his life. The house, the shared history, the future I took for granted. Gone. Obliterated by my own careless words, my own deep-seated disrespect I hadn't even recognized. I frantically texted him, pleading for a conversation, apologizing, saying I missed him. His reply was swift and devastating. Julian. Nothing left to talk about. You showed me who you really are. I can't unknow that. Me. Who am I? Julian. Someone who doesn't respect me. Someone who uses vulnerability as ammunition. I deserve better. I deserve better. The words echoed my mother's question, Cassidy's condemnation, the friend's silence. It was a consensus. I threw my phone. It hit the wall, screen shattering, like my life. A sob tore through me, raw and ugly. Then another. I sank to the floor, the carefully constructed walls of denial and anger crumbling completely. Grief washed over me. For my marriage, for Julian, for the life I'd carelessly destroyed. I finally saw it. Not just the joke at the party, but the pattern. The constant chipping away at his confidence, the dismissal of his feelings, the casual betrayals disguised as girl talk. It wasn't one mistake. It was death by 1,000 cuts, and I held the knife. He hadn't overreacted, he'd finally escaped. The weight of my actions, the full, irreversible consequences, crushed me. It was my fault. All of it. 2 months later, here I sit, in my beige box. The divorce is almost final. Julian refuses direct contact, lawyers handle everything. The friend group is his now. I see their happy pictures online, group dinners, weekend trips. Sometimes Julian is there. Last week, Dave accidentally included me on a group text planning a party. Julian was bringing someone new, Mia. A quick, painful Instagram stalk revealed a smiling, successful woman looking at Julian like he hung the moon. Like she actually sees him, respects him. Work is just a job. Cassidy got the promotion I wanted. We avoid each other. My mom tries to be supportive, but gently encourages self-reflection. Easy for her to say. Sometimes, late at night, scrolling through old photos of Julian and me, smiling, happy, oblivious, I let myself feel the full force of the loss. Was it really all my fault? My gut reaction is still defensive anger. He could have talked to me. Cassidy betrayed me. They all abandoned me. But the anger feels hollow now. Underneath it, there's a quiet, persistent ache of truth. Maybe I didn't know how to love someone without controlling them, without subtly diminishing them to make myself feel bigger. Maybe I took his quiet nature, his sensitivity, his love, entirely for granted. Maybe I didn't realize what I had until I blew it all up with a single, tiny joke. Everyone else seems to have moved on. Julian's thriving, traveling, smiling with Mia. Our friends are still friends, just not with me. Cassidy got her promotion. They're all fine. I'm the only one left picking through the wreckage. It doesn't feel fair. But deep down, in the quiet, lonely hours in this apartment, a voice whispers that maybe fair has nothing to do with it. Maybe this is just consequences. Maybe this is what I earned. Not that I'm ready to say that out loud. Maybe not ever, but the whisper is getting harder to ignore.